it's Tripod, the Tricycle Creative podcast. I know what you're saying. Ross, have you neglected us? All our ears have been cheating on you and going to other podcasts. And I would say to that, how dare you? How dare you? You can use your eyes. I've been doing a ton of video content over in my Marketing Clarity Facebook group. So you can check that out. I just broke down, let's see, this week, how search engines work. So that was, I love talking about that. So that was a lot of fun. Just search Tricycle Creative Marketing Clarity, or probably just Marketing Clarity. It's a free Facebook group. You can join it. Join me there doing video. I'm trying to stick to a weekly live stream. Tips, strategies, walkthroughs, all that good stuff. Today, though, it's going to be a fun podcast. It's a news cycle. And I try to do these like every month and bringing you the most interesting, the most useful, sometimes the most just entertaining digital marketing stories from the month. And I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm going to introduce her in a second. You just have to wait and sit through. The first story coming at you for News Cycle for the month of September 2021 is that Twitter is testing reaction-like emojis similar to Facebook. So you guys know if you're on Facebook and you go to like a post, they kind of they evolved the like, right? It used to be kind of awkward where you're like, my grandfather died today, and you go in and you're like, and you're like, oh, wait, did you hate my grandfather? Are you glad he's dead? Or are you feeling for me? I'm not quite sure this singular action. So they evolved it. So you have like the angry, the sympathetic, the love. I think there is a hate. There's definitely a mad in there. And then I think the default like. Well, Twitter apparently is testing that out. Now, as you guys know, we've talked about this in the past. I do really like Twitter, but admittedly, I'm just not in there. I'm just not in there as much as some maybe would even say I should be. So to talk about this topic, that's where today's guest comes in. Her name is Kayla. She's here joining me today in a new segment that I'm calling Meet a Tweeter. Hey, Kayla.
Hello, Ross. Glad to be here.
What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. I'm as good as can be expected.
Now, are you currently drafting a tweet as we speak?
No, but I will be back on Twitter live full time. I'm always there as soon as this recording is over.
To talk about what a shitty experience this recording started out as, because it was meant to be, guys, pulling back the curtain. I had this giant video thing I've been spending weeks on, and it just completely turned out to be a steaming pile and could not get it together. So I said, whatever, we'll do it live. We'll do it audio. So that's why we're here. So you're going to tweet all about the failures
That's right.
of Ross when it comes to live video, which is totally fine. I accept it.
It's a good lesson for listeners. Sometimes you just have to accept the technical failures. So that's the first lesson of the podcast today.
This new segment, this Meet a Tweeter segment, I thought it would be interesting because, as I said, the time I spend on Twitter, I really enjoy. And I'm there a lot. Like, I'm maybe a Twitter lurker more so than a participant.
You gotta jump in.
Well, it's one of, like, when I go through my order of operations of like, okay, I'm going to consume stuff on social, I usually go there and go to the search tab, right, and look through trends and look at all that stuff. Like, I spend a lot of time in there just looking at, okay, news, sports, the For You, right? Yeah. I spend a lot of time in there. And then I usually just kind of dip out. But I wanted to bring you on because when it does come time for me to spend time in my timeline, right, you're always there.
Yeah.
Your stuff is always there.
Yes, you have to kind of have a constant presence on Twitter, I'm finding. And I think the same is true on Instagram or TikTok or a lot of other platforms. Twitter was the one for me because it's word-based instead of image-based, but I I am there all of the time. And I think that that's how you kind of get a handle on the language around Twitter, too. There's a certain kind of cadence to conversations, and if you're out of it, you're out of it. If you're in it, you're in it. I think it's just kind of, you have to commit a little bit.
Here's what I also love. You somehow, I'm going to say master. I'm going to give you total props.
Nice.
Like, have mastered this, like, it's still a stream of consciousness, but it's not like, it's still of value. Like, so I pulled a tweet. I want to say from the last couple weeks of yours. Throw out your handle, Kayla, also, just so people who are listening, they could follow you.
Yes, it's at Kayla Knob, so it's KaylaNaab.
If this were video, I had it. I made a whole graphic for it. Okay, anyways. Okay. And the tweet was, what if you could subscribe to a high-value DM every couple weeks from a brand you like instead of an email?
Yeah.
I loved that. And that spurred on some conversation, too. A lot of people commented on that.
There were a lot of feelings, a lot of thoughts on both sides of the, I don't want brands coming in my DMs and spamming me, to, I'd love to clear out my inbox and have, more of a social conversation. So mixed reviews. And, that's actually kind of a thing I'm learning on Twitter, is I need to be more brazen with my what ifs and my opinions. I'm finding a lot of people are ready with the opinions on Twitter. So that definitely works there.
Well, isn't that kind of, I think, to its strength, and also I think the biggest challenge is Twitter is by far, when used properly, I feel like the most designed to be conversational.
Yes.
And they never strayed from that, much to the chagrin of some of the users that still ask for basic or, tools like delete tweets and edit tweets. It's like, and Twitter just holds off forever. And it's like one of those things that, like, every town hall meeting or something they have is going to come up and like, yeah, we're looking into it, or they all laugh. They all like the new guy brings it up, and they all like look around and laugh. At,
it's an inside joke.
He's new here. You're never going to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about Twitter?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's the immediacy of everything. Twitter really does break news. And that doesn't have to be big worldly news. Maybe it's pop culture. Maybe it's sports. It seems like everyone is on Twitter when things are happening. And so I like that immediacy a lot.
It's so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. It's like the forgotten thing.
Yeah.
It's like the forgotten platform. But then when something goes down,
yep.
That's where it's happening. It's so
I
true.
like that. I like that about Twitter, because I feel like for somebody then creating content, that stream of consciousness, that like half filter, half unfiltered kind of content that I like, it's easy to find there. Everything else is very high polish, very, pre-production, right? Even TikToks now are this like multi-level editing experience, and I don't have the stamina, to be honest with you, and B, I don't want to consume fake shit all day, to be honest with you. I just don't.
On that note, I guess flipping that, what's your least favorite thing about Twitter?
The politics, the toxicity, the places where people are getting in arguments that aren't about dumb stuff anymore. Really serious arguments that I think are fanned in the flames of, the way that media is consumed anyway. But Twitter seems to be particularly toxic.
Yeah, I think it's dark spaces can be particularly dark. But I will say, and this is probably a conversation for another day, Twitter, like many of the platforms, are doing their efforts to do a cleanup of that, and it sometimes feels like a scorched earth policy.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they're doing something. Whether or not the something is the correct path or the best path, I don't know, but they are doing something.
I see them trying to at least combat misinformation and some of those things that make me feel like it's a safer platform to spend time on. But it's still a challenge. When you're sharing space with other humans, it's always kind of a Wild West. You never know what you're going to get. You never know what you'll encounter. So one of the things I would recommend to you, and I think would have you engaging with your feed more and less with just the search page, is to curate what you're following almost constantly. So I do actually go in and cull who I follow probably a couple of times a month. That sounds harsh. Usually I don't remove anybody with the bots. No, it feels good
when you do it. It's been a long time since I did it, and I'm not going to lie. Like, it feels really good.
Yeah.
It used to be those things, too. I did it, and I should probably do it. I'm overdue to do it with my Facebook page, too.
Totally.
But weirdly enough, I kind of just like, even though the group component for Marketing Clarity, my new coaching program, is in Facebook groups, it's kind of just because Facebook groups is doing groups the best right now.
Totally, by far.
So it's kind of like, they're alternatives, but as much as people bemoan Facebook, groups is where they're pushing all the chips in, and honestly, it is kind of the best framework. I'm not going to say it's the best platform. It's just the best setup and framework for it.
It is, and having all those profiles already built in does help people to acquire. And, I think the reason, and, this will get off on a tangent, but the reason the Facebook groups works better than the Facebook feed is because you're signing up for it. I think most people who, just engage with their Facebook or Twitter feed, it's just everybody I randomly ran into in the last 5 years. That's too much.
I know.
No focus.
And it does feel good when you do go in and clean it out. I'm not going to lie. And it's amazing oftentimes how much your feed gets transformed.
Oh, yeah.
So are you cool to stick around for the rest of the news cycle? I have one story coming up here. We're going to be talking about the YouTube report. It's a pretty substantial, beefy report, but I'm going to be pulling out some highlights. And then an IG for Kids story that I thought we'd both have fun with. Is that you cool to stick around?
Let's do it.
All right. So this new YouTube SEO report came out, and it was like a combo study. So for those of you that don't know, YouTube is the second largest search engine behind only Google, which owns it. So, it's like second, but with an asterisk. But it's the second largest search engine. And this particular YouTube SEO report was put together because YouTube videos themselves have this whole SEO component as far as being able to be discovered and found when you search on YouTube, and even by extension when you search on Google, because the videos that are fed into Google search results are pretty much almost exclusively YouTube. There have been some discussions that they're going to test. They're always testing, maybe bringing in Reels or Instagram short videos. But those relationships run so hot and cold. It's like, we're going to show Facebook. And then they get in a spat and they're like, screw you. And they throw it away. And so you never know. You can rely that they're going to be pulling in YouTube videos forever because it's their thing. It's their platform. It's Google's platform. So this was put together by Tubix and SEMrush. A service. Actually, I interviewed a buddy of mine, Fernando from SEMrush. You can go back and listen in the archives, tripodpodcast.com. We talked all about SEMrush and we talked SEO, but this was like a combo report they did together. And I'm going to pull out some interesting takeaways here. And the first one is this idea, or more so actually a strategy that they found from looking at number one results and things like that and what comes up high. And for those of you out there creating video, this is you need to kind of put both feet firmly to either go concise or go elaborate. So that's the first thing, is if you're going to do a video, you want to be super concise and make it short. And when I say short, let's say sub 5 minutes. Or you want to go in and make this thing super detailed and in-depth. Now, for any of you who also check out Tricycle Creative videos, you know where I go. I go elaborate because I am a long-winded son of a.
Me too.
I can't help myself. Now, the nice thing is, for a handful of my videos, because I do a lot of reviews and walkthroughs, people are like, wow, this was really helpful, step by step by step. I go elaborate because I don't know any other way, right? When you consume video, Kayla, do you find yourself leaning one way or another depending on the type of videos you're watching or searching for?
Definitely. It's interesting because you'll have vloggers or people doing a long read of a situation that will apologize for their length of their video. Oh, this is going to be 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But then you'll have people who, they're making 1 minute or even 30-second videos and crushing it. And usually those I'm going for a how-to or a quick piece of information. If you're going to dive deep, dive deep. I think people want to sit with a snack and a beverage and really consume that.
I think part of that too is reading the room and what already exists, because I think you can also relate. There's nothing more annoying than looking for a how-to video, and then the person is spending 45 minutes or something. It's how to, fix a clogged sink, and they spend 10 minutes talking about the particular wrench of which seems to have no intrinsic value to the end result, and you're like, can you move it along here?
Yeah. or it's a 10-minute branded spot ahead of them actually telling us what we came to know. Catch me scrolling ahead. And to be honest,
worse.
Yeah, I have seen it so many times where it almost seems like people are doing the opposite, really cutting their story short and then trying to have this brief content be
You're
stretched
so
out.
right. Sometimes where you're I wish there was more here, and other times where you're for the love of God, please cut this down.
Well, and so you're saying duration matters for rankability though too?
It does, because duration matters, because one of the huge factors in in YouTube SEO ranking is what's called watch time. And that is not only a metric of how many minutes and seconds, but it's also a metric of percentage of video. So that is really key, because even if your video, let's say how to fix a kitchen sink, if your video is 5 minutes, but a giant bulk of your audience is watching the entirety of the 5 minutes versus a 20-minute video, and
where they're
people
bouncing,
and they're bouncing, then some of the signals there is that this video is kind of scratching that itch better. The one that's a 5 minute and you're watching all 5 minutes versus a 20 and you're only watching 5 minutes of the 20.
Yeah.
So this is where watch time, if you're going to get consumed over anything, you need to be consumed about or obsessed about watch time. I also did a video on my YouTube channel about buying YouTube views. I bought YouTube views, and I was did it because I was very curious about it. I wanted to know how it worked.
Yeah.
And so I did a whole video breakdown of whether or not you should buy YouTube views. You can check that out at youtube.com/Tricycle Creative and just search, buy YouTube views. You'll see a whole video breakdown. I went, shocker, I went deep. I went elaborate on it. I didn't go short. So you get a whole breakdown. Trust me.
That seems appropriate.
That's right. So the other thing when it comes to titling, 54% of all the analyzed videos come with an average of 8 words in their title.
Oh, wow.
So this is the thing about data, and I think you would agree with this. I tell my clients when it comes to data, particularly when it comes to SEO, you use data to inform, not dictate.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean that you need to be shackled in and exactly make 8 words, but this tells you that there's something to brevity when it comes to titling.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting when it came to, building out your title and being very thoughtful and specific.
Yeah.
When it comes to how you're titling your video, because I think people think, if I put more in there, that more is always better, and it's not.
No, and you see those titles that go on and they get truncated, so you don't even get to see the whole thing. And I've always thought that was a keyword move, trying to stuff more keywords into the title. It seems like that's not a good move.
It is a keyword move, but it is also, to your point, not necessarily
Not a
a
good one.
good move by itself. I mean, just like with normal SEO, keywords, Google and by extension YouTube, they're smarter now.
Yeah.
It's not just about keyword stuffing. I can't tell you how many clients I work with on the SEO front that come to me and, having come from talk to someone else, some armchair SEO expert, and they're still subscribing to the keyword stuffing. And I'm like, run, don't walk from that person.
Yeah.
Run away and lock your door and don't answer their call.
It's a good example of someone to unfollow on Twitter.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So if we work our way into another kind of part of a video, next part is a description. And from this report we're looking at, again, it's a SEMrush and Tubix report. I'll include it in the show notes, tripodpodcast.com, and also in the description for this podcast if you want to check out the whole thing for yourself, is that more than half of the videos that ranked at the first position have more than 50 words in the description of the video.
Interesting.
So this is another area where the more context, the more copy, the more words that you use in the description, that helps to inform the YouTube algorithm as to what the video is about, that is valuable.
Interesting. Do we think that the description length matters more from a just scrapeability of trying to get those keywords and that context for the bot or crawler that's running that? Or do they expect that people are also reading them? Do you think there's a value in making it readable?
Well, that's a really good question. I think if I was going to rank those two things, I think it's probably a little bit slightly less about people actually reading it and more about, again, context clues.
Yeah.
For the scrape, the spiders, the YouTube, technology to get that information.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you should only be writing for the robots. This applies to SEO too. Write for people, don't write for Google. Don't write for YouTube. Write as if you're 100%. Talking to a person. Use the same words. Use what I call keyword cousins. So if you're doing a video, again, about fixing the kitchen sink or fixing the sink, talk about the kitchen, the bathroom, talk about the particular, if you have a certain wrench and this is a constant problem, but like talk as if you were talking to a person, not as if you're talking to a robot.
Yeah.
I think that's an important piece for any SEO, but particularly for video. Now, interestingly enough, you talked about that scrapeability, and this is really where this next kind of finding or piece comes in, and that's with the tags. So when you put tags on a video, those aren't publicly seen. There are tools that allow you to see the tags that people put on videos, but otherwise, it's not publicly facing. It's only seen by and scanned and reviewed by YouTube. The little tags you put on, like the keywords, for lack of a better word, but they're called tags.
Sure.
And this study found that the top ranking videos use an average of 13 tags. Now, an individual tag can be a key phrase, too. So it's not necessarily a singular word. So, for example, back to the fixing a sink, it could be how to fix a kitchen sink. That could be one tag.
Okay.
So a key phrase can make up a singular tag. But like I said, an average of 13.
And these are the tags that you would enter in the back end. They're, as you're saying, not visible to people. Would you also be putting hashtags manually into the description, or is that a separate thing?
No, that's a great question, because for those of you that don't know, hashtags have come to YouTube. Now, the way it works, though, they will group videos together based on hashtag, but they only show, and I think by extension only function, with up to 3.
Okay.
So you can put a hashtag. Hashtags go in the description. You can put a video hashtag in the description. Now, again, no more than 3, because that's all. It counts the first 3 in order, whatever you put them in. And it'll group them. So if someone sees that hashtag under your video and clicks on it, it'll show them other related videos to it.
Nice.
But that goes in the description. But it's kind of a similar subject, whereas the hashtag coming from Twitter, it's kind of like like this is the almost like the environment, if you will,
Yeah.
that this video should live in. Whereas the tags can be a little more granular.
Yeah.
Right.
Getting into the specific topics or even items you mentioned and that kind of thing.
Like this sync metaphor or whatever, the example I'm using here would be like, your hashtag could be home repair, but your tags could be how to fix a kitchen sink.
Right.
You see, so like there's kind of this hierarchy, if you will, that you can use. Now, the last thing that I did want to bring up is another relatively new feature to YouTube, and that is this timestamps, or otherwise known as chaptering. Have you seen this, Kayla?
Yes.
Have you seen this? Like, do you like it? Do you like the chaptering?
I do, because I like a lot of long videos. And these are especially valuable.
Kayla's my people. You see that? She loves long ass videos.
Long videos. I love it because if I'm coming to, let's say, a big overview video about a big topic, it's 25 minutes long or 40 or an hour, I can find the specific chapters that I'm looking for on the little annotations. So you can actually scan across the time bar and it'll show you, this is the part where I'm talking about, this type of optimization versus that, and I can go and find it. I'm already somebody who listens to a lot of YouTube videos at double speed because I'm just needing to consume a lot in the day. So this feature is great. I haven't thought about it, though, from an optimization perspective, how it might help somebody posting on YouTube.
Well, I want to ask you this, as again, I mean, I don't know, there's few people who aren't YouTube users who are probably listening to this, but when you use the chaptering, do you think that you find yourself actually watching more of a video or less of a video? Because this is a debate among the tubers.
Less.
Yeah. But is that a good thing? Is it a better experience for you?
Yeah. That's right? I think this is a dichotomy, I think, in a lot of industries for a lot of reasons. What the company wants, or in this case, what the creator wants, which is to get as much, like you're saying, percentage of viewership as they can, versus what the consumer or viewer in this case wants, which is to have ultimate efficiency. Yeah. And that's always going to be a push-pull. I think that creators playing the long game will probably get more out of just going with what benefits their users or subscribers. But that's always the fight, right? The algorithm versus the actual value.
So I don't have a set pro-con list going here, but let me also roll out for you some of the other pros of doing timestamps or chaptering. So for those of you that don't know, what you can do on a YouTube video is you can actually set up, and you could probably do a YouTube search. I think did a video on this myself, on how to do chaptering on YouTube videos. But you drop them into the description, and what it then does is automatically adds these like markers at the bottom of the video, right above the player with the little play button, and you can skip, and you can actually kind of move your mouse over it and see the certain sections, and then skip to the particular sections. Well, one side obviously believes, or there are people who someone's, like you just said, is going to watch less of my video because they're just going to skip ahead or skip to the part that they want. My argument to that would be, well, if you didn't, that person may not even get that information from you.
Right.
Like, that's my counter argument to that. Is like, would you rather them get value or bounce completely from your channel?
Right.
Right. The other thing is, when you do the chaptering, I've seen this, and you've probably seen this too, this is now being pulled into Google search. So if I search for something and a chapter inside of a video matches like a relevant answer to that query, it will bring up the video and it will show me the chaptering.
Yep.
And show me the exact point where to jump in.
Yeah. And
that
to
is
me,
huge.
Yeah, to me, that is a pathway then to get people looking at all your other videos. And there may be other topics, they'll watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
One other, kind of interesting thing I'm thinking about, and maybe this is something you've thought about too, is if I'm looking at the chapters on a video, I can skip the sponsored sections.
Yeah.
Not talking about mid-roll ads, but actual sponsorship content within the video. I can just go, oh, HelloFresh. Yeah, I'll skip that whole section. I've heard it 1,000 times.
Sorry, HelloFresh.
Sorry. Don't.
HelloFresh, official sponsor of this episode of Tripod. Haha, you couldn't skip it. Haha, gotcha.
Well, and that's the thing, I have seen them all so many times that, I'm familiar with most of the sponsors on YouTube, I think, as much as the rest of us. And I can skip that content. That doesn't bode well. And I don't know if that's something that's measurable to YouTubers or not, but that doesn't bode well for sponsorships.
That's true. Very true. So let me think on that, because this is the first time. So you can skip over. So what you do find a lot of times are, and I've done this for a handful of videos, that are not necessarily sponsored, but I like to promote platforms that I think would help my audience, creative business owners. And a lot of times I've negotiated discounts with those platforms. I've contacted them, talked about my audience, and I get some sort of discount, which I think is helpful.
Yeah.
A lot of times what you'll see is that people will start off a video with that, right? They'll start first with that, and then conceivably work it in a little more organically. But to your point, if you're going to call out that very specific sponsor piece, people are going to be able to skip it. So it is something that I think is a creative challenge opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? It's
definitely.
How do you, again, make that sponsor relevant, interesting, like in an organic way, and valuable, and show the value in an organic way, versus just you're relying on the fact that you can trick them or get them because they got no place else to go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's an interesting kind of comparison between putting a product commercial in between, an episode of a show versus having that product placed in the show.
Totally.
And I mean, I'm not suggesting that product placement is the best alternative, but there's got to be a way to weave it into the story. And I think that that's really probably what the future of consumers expects. We're getting sick of being advertised to.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, when I'm creating a video, I have so much time planning and recording and editing. And then the last thing I want to do is sit down and make dinner. So that's when I call HelloFresh. So you can go to HelloFresh.com/tripod for inevitably a 404 page, because that's not a thing that exists. But you can see how this could be conceivably worked in a not even that well thought out way. Yeah. Now, bringing this all together for the last point, timestamps. This report found that timestamps, when it comes to search rankings on YouTube, a video coming up higher or lower, that it did not seem to make much of a difference whether or not a video had the timestamps or not. Now, timestamps and this chaptering is relatively new. Relatively. So I think this is something that it's kind of promising. Because what this is showing is that what Google is not doing and what YouTube is not doing is just being like, oh, you're doing chaptering, we're gonna boost your video more than others.
Right.
Which is something that's kind of that's kind of like a dick Facebook move. It's like, oh, you're posting reels? Then we're definitely going to show your reels in front of 10x the people, because we're really leaning in on reels. It's like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be that way. It does not seem to be that just by using that feature are you getting a competitive advantage against other videos.
And that's how it should be.
I agree.
That's really how it should be, because people are building real businesses on these social channels, on these media channels, where there's got to be a certain amount of predictability and reliability to using them. I think it's a disrespect to business owners to flaunt a new feature and then just overtly praise people who use it. And we've seen that done on other platforms.
Pardon me.
What was that words?
I don't know. I can tell you firsthand, because I was involved in video when Facebook was pushing video. So this was let's just call it the 2000 and, Oh my God, this is a long time ago. 2004, 2010 to 2015 maybe.
Yeah.
Where they were leaning in on video and wanted people uploading video to YouTube. And they were trying to, at that time, or to compete with YouTube as the video platform. That's when I was working in corporate media and doing video production. And boy, was that a fun time to be in video.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were juicing the hell out of it.
Yeah.
It's obscene. It's like, it literally was like sometimes 20x the reach of a video. And now video always does, well, not always. Video most of the time does better than other content. But like, it was just obscene and obvious that this was getting that extra algorithmic boost. Because that's what Facebook wanted to encourage people to do. That doesn't
and for
seem
marketers,
to be what YouTube's doing.
Social media managers, anybody using any of these platforms and really watching these metrics, that's a stress. It's not automatically a benefit because those don't convert to buyers. They're not automatically reliable metrics at all. So.
And it's hard because it's the tail wagging the dog. Is that what the saying? Where it's like it's not. You don't have control. The wins you get there are only because of an external force that you don't control. So it's kind of like, again, the result comes with an asterisk. Because you could then, if Facebook decides to stop doing that, which it did, then all of a sudden the strategy you built, and this is digital marketing, so, this kind of comes with the territory. But if Facebook decides to pull the rug out from under that, then that strategy you had, guess what? It's garbage.
Yeah. And you're building from scratch. That's why I warn, business owners and people against TikTok. It's a great platform. There's a lot of great content over there in ways, but that early surge of being able to get 1 million followers didn't mean anything. Yeah. It just didn't unless you were going to monetize that platform itself.
Totally. We have one more story. It's News Cycle. The notes for this particular YouTube study are at tripodpodcast.com and in the show description. But it depends on where you get this podcast. Sometimes you don't always get all the stuff, so you can always head on over to tripodpodcast.com for the show notes. Kayla, you sticking around for this last story?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, here we go. We got one more story, folks, for our news. Interesting, important, entertaining digital marketing news from September 2021. All right, Kayla, I'm going to let you introduce this story because you introduced it to me and I said, let's talk about it.
Yes. So this is interesting. As of a couple days ago, Facebook and Instagram are pausing their plans to launch Instagram for Kids, a plan that was fully in draft as of July. So I want to back up a little bit and talk about how we got here because this is crazy.
Crying and laughing at the same
I
time.
know. So back in March, the news actually broke on BuzzFeed News that Facebook, Instagram had the strategic plan to create an app focused on kids under 13. And for those of you that don't know, Instagram has an age requirement of 13 years and up, allegedly. And the goals were to cut down on kids lying about their age, to get access to Instagram prematurely, to give parents more of a controlled environment for their children. As you might be able to surmise, this backfired a little bit because by April, child safety organizations, Congress, everyone was already pushing against this move. And they were citing a lot of reasons, mental health reasons, privacy concerns, a lot of things that already plague children that are active on the internet. By May, there were 44 attorney generals signing a letter to Zuckerberg urging him to scrap this app. And in July, Facebook announced they'd be moving forward. Yeah. Now, how we got between July, where it was fully a go, and September, where they are now pulling back, was this is just crazy. So the Wall Street Journal broke news that Facebook was housing documented reports on the negative impact of Instagram on children and teens, specifically girls. And it's just... So
guys, if I don't laugh, I'm going to cry. That's like, can we just pause and just officially crown? I mean, I know there's more to this story, so forgive me. I know there's more. But like, can we just crown Facebook as the Philip Morris of the digital generation? I mean, for the love of God. Yes. This is like candy cigarettes. It's like, Facebook, calm down.
Yeah.
13-year-olds or sub 13-year-olds don't need access to Instagram. And I know, and here's the thing. I think that you brought this up, and at first I let it go, and then I reread it, and I was just like, I got so many feels about this. And I know. So I don't even know how to contain them all and like my frustrations. Because here's the other thing. The idea here is that this would be a separate like platform, right? Am I, at least from what we know?
Yeah.
So similarly, YouTube has like a YouTube Kids version, right? But let's talk about what lives on YouTube Kids. It's kids programming. The idea that a parent can go use that YouTube Kids app and pull up, I don't know what kids watch these days, but pull up a show that kids watch and just give a kid an iPad. I mean, agree with this parenting style or not? Let's put that on the shelf for now. But just use case. Okay, right. Hey, watch Paw Patrol. You can watch all these episodes of Paw Patrol. And we know that the commercials on, if there are commercials on, I don't have YouTube Kids, so I don't know, but like the commercials are probably kid friendly, however friendly kid commercials can be, but nonetheless, they're vetted, blah, 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 right? Yep. So there's a very clear, again, I would say value added use case to YouTube Kids. Instagram, on the other hand, first of all, Instagram completely scrapped, and this goes back to, the ever-changing shiny object for Facebook.
Yeah.
2 years ago, Facebook was pushing IGTV really hard.
Yep.
Really hard. To the point where I even made at the end of the year to say, hey, this next year's going to be the year of IGTV. Boy, was I wrong. I'm never going to bet on a Facebook initiative again like that. Boy, was I wrong. But they were pushing long form. And that because I said, well, they did it before on the Facebook platform to drive video. Now they're just doing that on Instagram to compete with YouTube. So we have long form content on Instagram. And they were kind of killing it because it was vertical. It was one of the few that was vertical. So they were killing it. It was kind of a challenge for creators, but nonetheless, it was very unique. And it was the largest platform that was really leaning in on it. Then they gave up on it. And then Reels came around, and Reels became the shiny object for them. Like, goodbye, IGTV. It's not even at the bottom of your tray in Instagram. IGTV is gone. It's buried in Instagram. So my question here, saying all this, is what the holy hell is Instagram Kids even supposed to be?
And there really wasn't a lot out that I could find to be very specific. I know that they were talking about having greater parental control and hopefully it was going to be content for kids and by kids. And I don't know. To me, that sounds like just a monetization opportunity for family vlogger channels to put their kids on the internet and make money off of them, while the rest of kids are just engaging with another version of cyberbullying and other problems. Now, that's just my opinion, right? What I do know from a news study perspective is they had these reports. Instagram, Facebook internally had these reports, which included some kind of grave facts. I'll even put a content.
This is something this is an aspect I'm glad that you dug into this, because I didn't even have to see this, but I'd be curious to know.
I dug into it a little bit, so I'll even put a content warning on this because some of it's a little dark. They said that suicide in teen and preteen girls in the United States and the UK is being tied directly to Instagram and the influence of Instagram. Yeah. 1 in 3 teen girls are citing negative body image tied to social media, naming Instagram specifically. And Instagram was identified as a source of body comparison, wealth comparison, and other lifestyle pressures by children under 13 as well as teenagers. So we've got a problem here. How do we want to trust Facebook and Instagram to build an app for children when the 13 to 18-year-old population using the Instagram app we use now is already in danger? Right.
And again, this isn't even a marketing thing. But, like, does the greater good outweigh, like, what we're going to get out of this?
Right.
Like, and it doesn't. Because, again, I cannot even think of, like, devil's advocate, what's the value that this platform could bring? Like, what, like, in a debate club, right? If I had to be on Facebook side, and then they'd be like, okay, you listen here, you have to debate. What is my platform here?
Other than them making money, I can't find one.
Like
and to be
greater
honest,
parental controls. Why don't you just do that on the normal app? Am I fucking crazy here? Like, just do it on the normal app.
yeah,
I don't understand. Like,
I know. And I do think that Instagram claims to be working on greater mental health support features for the 13 to 18 crowd that can use their app presently. I know there's a feature called Take a Break that they plan to roll out for everybody, which you can kind of turn your profile off without putting it away. So you wouldn't be able to get messages and comments and that kind of stuff if you just want to take a social media break. Those things are fine. There are plenty of things we could do within the app. The problem for me is that
I hide my likes also related to that. Do you hide your likes, by the way? Do you hide like account?
No,
I hide like account.
I don't, but I could if it started to bother me for sure.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think people should. I haven't because to be honest, I don't spend enough time on Instagram to care one way or the other. But I will say the reason I spend less time on Instagram is because it makes me feel bad. As a woman, as a person, as a business owner, it makes me feel bad more than good. Yeah.
I think we've talked about this before, but like when we're talking about the platforms, I'm just trying to think here. Maybe because I'm not overly conversational or in it that much, but I feel like I generally feel good about Twitter.
Yeah.
When I'm there, right? To your point, though, I mean, it could go sideways real quick.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is a overwhelmingly like braggadocious, sure, but positive place, right? We've talked about this before. Like, I enjoy a good LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. I mean, as a woman, you get creepy DMs everywhere, I will say. but LinkedIn isn't too bad.
What is wrong with people? And when I say people, I mean men. Really?
Right.
Like, what is wrong with us? I met my wife on Match. I can't even imagine what what a woman's life is like on Match. I can't even fathom the nightmare that is.
Well, and so to me, thinking, I don't think I'd want my 14-year-old daughter on Instagram seeing the same thing.
No joke.
Tying that back. And I mean, I think it's positive that Facebook and Instagram did some of those studies. But I also then go, okay.
They buried the results.
They buried the results. They buried the results, and then they're not using those results to make choices here. To me, ultimately, mental health is bad enough for adults that are self-managing our social media use. We're sitting here talking about adult women being harassed, and we're sitting here talking about our fatigue with platforms. I'm not a parent. I'll be very transparent. I'm not a parent. If I were, I don't know that I would know how to manage my child's usage any more than my own. I don't think we're ready for that. I just don't think we're ready. I agree. I think we have a responsibility as marketers to advocate for the end consumer. And so to me, that means choosing social media platforms or other media platforms that are responsible, and then responsibly and ethically using the ones I choose. These social media platforms and the entire social media era has a hold on this period in human history. And I just don't think that should be minimized. We need to look at one another and decide how we're going to do this for the next 10, 20, 50 years.
Yeah, and I don't hate the push for antitrust. I don't hate that.
Yeah.
Just weird to say, but listen, I'm a shareholder and stockholder in some of these companies too.
Yeah.
But I'm also not a blind, greedy, full-on capitalist about the damage that some of this stuff is doing.
That's right.
So with that, we come to the end of this episode of News Cycle. Kayla, throw out those handles of where you want people to find and connect with you.
Yeah. So I am on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm Kayla Knob at both. So KaylaNaab. I run a brand consultancy called Brand Panache, brandpanache.com. We partner with Tricycle often. So we are friends. And then I'm also on Instagram. It's what Kayla does on Instagram. It's less business over there. I just like to post pictures of my dogs. So come hang out.
You're still taking, I feel like for a while there, you're really taking a lot of good hikes.
Yeah, I like to get outside. It's been hotter than blazes here in the center of the U.S. for a while.
Yeah.
Ready for fall.
Well, I feel like you were were you in the Pacific Northwest for a while there when you were
Yes.
taking, like, there was a lot of, speaking of getting jealous and whatever, other people with Instagram, like some of her hikes, I was like, damn it, man. Here I am, where again, Austin, Texas is hotter than hell. That looks like a beautiful forest hike.
That's right. Yeah. Come for the travel photos, stay for the dog photos.
It's mostly what my personal one is too. And tricycles. So at Hello Tricycle, wherever you are, and at Ross Hero. All right, until next time, I will talk at you then. And as always, I encourage you, the creative business owner, to keep pedaling.